All right, guys, thank you. There was a lot of submissions. A lot of them, really fantastic. A lot of them were on point, are, even on theme. What we tended to avoid for this particular challenge were just some more of the static figure, as super cool and creative as this was, and some of the other ones are also really good. We were particularly aiming for more so full scene design. So again, like Owens and stuff, really immaculately detailed and executed. But yeah, let's get some of those guys into like a full scene. But yeah, really good work, everybody. We love a lot of what we see here, and of course, most of the ones that we really liked and have really good kind of structure, like this one and this one, we just didn't pick because they still feel like too much like color sketches, and there's a lot of work that still needs to be done to kind of finish them. But otherwise, I mean, this is super rad. It's just a shame we didn't have time to really get into everybody's, but great work nonetheless on these. I was working on one. I kind of didn't really finish it up. It's just kind of on theme. I was having fun with it. But yeah, let's get into everybody else's work now, all right? Ready to get into this? All right, guys, we're doing another brush critique session. Thank you for joining me tonight, Jess, who was just on in the last video.
It's true.
For those keeping up with the sequence of things. And it's very good, guys. You should check out the upload previous if you missed it. It's fantastic. Been getting great feedback on it. We thank you guys for that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Because if you were here now, then I'd be able to share the
Then I
Mai
could have a
Tai.
Mai Tai instead of my bourbon.
Yeah, your tiki glass, it's just got my backup in it. So I'll drink
Oh,
it for you.
thanks. Good pal.
I'm a great surrogate drinker. All right. This month's challenge and theme is Elden Ring, which I think's been out 3 or 4 weeks up to this point, but it's a game. A lot of you know it. Some of you may not, but it's
I
dark.
apologize. I have never heard of it until Tyler told me that was the theme of this
Yeah,
challenge.
we'll
So
we'll rake you over the coals for this one.
I have no doubt.
But yeah, it's a dark fantasy game, and this was 23 total submissions. We narrowed it down to 10, and it was tough. It was really tough. We usually
Yeah.
are, I want to say it's pretty painless, just like picking those 10, but it it came down to
Yeah, I feel
splitting
like there's a
hairs.
few at the end where it's like really hard. Like, should it be this one? Should it be that one? Like push and
Yes.
pull. So
We were definitely splitting hairs on this. Some of them were technically stronger, others were stylistic, some hit the note. Basically, the ones that get wrote off, because I don't know if I'll put an anecdote section like after, like sometimes I have time for, sometimes I don't. But it was a clear cut if it didn't look finished, if it looked
yeah.
very quick sketch like. Those ones every time, guys. These ones do have a little bit more of a cleaner, more consistent presentation overall, which is why we picked these ones.
hmm
And
Or ones I think that like had a stronger voice in like the composition choices and style choices too.
hmm for sure. All right, we're gonna start with Josh Class, which is bold and it's green. All right, I'll do yeah, just like this. I think this is pretty as big as it's going to get anyway. Do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, so this one's really interesting. I feel like it has a very interesting style. It almost makes me think of, like some sort of print or ink drawing as well as a painting, but it feels kind of like it doesn't fully want to commit to being a painting or fully commit to being like more of an ink drawn style.
Do you,
I kind of feel like I want it to push one direction or the other, more so. And I actually think maybe to lean into some of the ink drawing style, like printmaker style, like look at ways that things could be shaded, because you have like a really interesting way of like using the silhouette and the black that feels like it could go a lot farther if you leaned into that a little bit.
right? It begs the question: is how intentional or not was that? Because that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I see this, because we haven't deliberated on any of these really at all, except for which we
Yeah.
wanted. It came off as like a print press sort of image,
hmm
and I think it's due to the hatching and the scratching and the dark graphic marks that is being made here.
And it almost feels like a lot of the edges are like carved, like cut into. Like if you
Yes.
look at some of the silhouettes of the towers and stuff, the way that you're applying the paint, in
Like in
a
here,
printmaking process, a lot of times you're carving into a surface, and there's a similar quality in the way that you're applying paint.
like
That
all
I,
through here,
mhm.
just like that. You can see it in here. You got the scratches, got the scratch. So if this was not at all your intent, I'll say right here, you need to reevaluate your technique and your process because that's how it comes off.
Yeah.
Um, and that'll be a make it or break it thing for you right there.
Yeah, and I think it's again, it's like if it's intentional or not, because there's areas like that wall up close, you have some nice gradations
Hmm.
of,
But
things
there's
that feel much more organic and painterly. And then it looks like in the sky you tried to blend it and be more painterly, and
yeah,
yet it
it's
didn't end up
still
that way.
yeah. The sky looks very unfinished on that note, and then this is the only area that looks like painted. Like I think, like you were saying,
Hmm.
because everything else has got like that dark black, almost like a comic like style for like an
Yeah, it
indie
does have
video
that comic
game.
feel. Yeah.
I I should mention I shrunk the guy because like originally he felt like a giant. Like if
Yeah.
you like he could stretch his arms out and it would be over like well stretching the diameter or the length of the door, which if this is a big gate, that's not going to be the case.
And the other thing, I agree completely with shrinking him because it gives more a sense of like this monstrous scale of this fantastical
Hmm.
environment. But the other thing too is that the pose feels very like over the top acting, like rah, or yelling at the sky sort of thing.
Thunder
Like,
God.
yeah, I think that
I love it
maybe
though.
just a more natural pose or gesture, like even the way he's standing, his feet on the ground don't feel right. Like he feels kind of like cartoonish plopped in there. Um,
Yeah, I
I don't
agree.
know.
No, it has vibe wise, it has a very comic sort of feel and execution to it. It's very long. I think you could, if we were to do surgery on this, you could literally chop out a good amount of the middle section of this painting, and it technically I don't think would suffer a thing because like you have like these two polar opposite things. They're in opposition of each other, but they're like so far away. It just there's a huge disconnect for me on that. Like so like on the technical side, the composition isn't my favorite. And the first thing I do is again major surgery surgery here, digital surgery in that middle section. Just bring these things together and
Yeah,
see how it flows.
because you're also running into the problem of like like the hierarchy of center of attention is, you've got this silhouetted orange circle with a black thing surrounded by light in the sky, and then you've got this dark guy,
Hmm.
in the foreground, and they kind of compete with each other for attention, and you
Yep.
kind of got to find a way to diminish one of them and visually link them together so the eye can move naturally between them, which having the big gate separating them kind of cut the picture in half. And so you got to find a way to let the eye move naturally between them.
There's other various perspective grievances I'd say I had. Like this tower really looks like it's falling
Hmm.
over detrimentally, but yeah, I think it's a good submission. Thank you for sending it, Josh
And
O'Class.
I will say, like, I love the feel of it. Like the color
Yeah,
choices, the
it's
atmosphere
very
of it is
bold,
really cool. Yeah,
just like a comic. Here we go, Martin.
this is really cool.
Yeah, this is awesome. Let's see here. Try to get it all looking.
I
The
really like the color choices. I
great
feel like they
color.
did a really nice job, like with these soft, kind of warm and cool neutrals and pushing and pulling them. Really nice.
What right? So like the strengths of this right is the color palette, the drama, the
Hmm.
action. Um, what is the biggest weak point for you on this?
It's got to be that figure in the foreground. Like the composition and that figure just feel very forced in there. Like it's kind of like crammed into the corner. It's hard
Because
to
it's
tell.
right. It's cropped at the shoulder here, and then we're cropped at the fingertips here. It never feels like it feels like this is a slice of life sort of scenario where this probably should
Yeah.
be like minimally that wide. Like, is there a particular reason why it's
And
so narrow?
the other thing too is like I would even say is like widen it like Tyler is saying to give you a little more breathing room, and then move the characters so they're not
Around.
so like vertically in line with each
That's a
other.
great
So like
idea.
yeah, the foreground character goes more off to the side, and the multi-armed creature goes more to the other side.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but that's a good idea. Like offsetting them.
Yeah, and then it kind of gives them both room, like their own, territory within the painting, so they don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
they just become one solid shape.
Yep. Like that's because they're really like if you have a really awkward choice in like how this is staged and presented because it's a very narrow image and then everything important you just have going down, drip feeding down that singular line. Where
Hmm.
if like you widen it up, you stagger your elements into composition, it's
Yep.
gonna feel a lot more natural. It's gonna feel more organic in that sense. It's gonna be more dynamic, and you're gonna increase the readability, the visibility, and the overall amount of appeal. I think by doing some basic things like that. Get the sword going, pew, out there, and you get this arm. I think that guy's might lose.
And I would also work on the shape design of this
Mm,
foreground character because I mean, the multi-armed creature looks really cool and really interesting, and this guy feels like kind of like a cardboard cutout right in the
yeah,
foreground.
it needs a bit more posing.
Yeah.
Separate out these figures
Hmm.
because there's a lot of flatness
Yes,
kind of
they
going
stop
on
joining.
in between there. But that's the common thread so far is cropping and like these big compositional choices. The this figure is so close, in perspective with us. You're gonna have to work on the materials and the brushwork within there, so it kind of
Mhm.
comes together a little more solid because you're right this close to in the composition. You could get away with that kind of detail, that level of finish if we're like looking at the character really far away. But this is up close and center. It's a very dynamic and personal kind of picture in that regard, and you're gonna have to work extra hard to paint really
And
crisp edges and get the materials right.
I would also say that the main character, that the multi-armed character, like the face and stuff, some of that should be pushed a little further. Like
Yeah,
it
let me
still feels very unfinished. Yeah, like the hands and
very
the face feel
color.
unfinished.
Yeah, like the head's got a good start, but
Hmm.
this character, right? Like I would say needs no less than an extra 10 hours alone to get to that level they probably want because like this is pretty realistic. It's pretty standard fantasy illustration.
Yeah, this
uh
could be beautiful. Like this
yeah,
would be like a really cool book cover if you address some of the compositional issues and then just take the time to really polish
take
up.
the time.
Hmm.
There's no shortcut to quality. Like each and every one of these arms you're gonna probably have to photograph and reference and get some similar sort of lighting scenario, and then you spent like because I had asked you right on one of your recent pictures, like I saw one of your hands, you had blown it up, and I was like, wow, that looks really good. I was like, how long you spent on that hand? And you said like the better part of a day, maybe. Right,
I
like it was a
no, I
while.
think it was like 2 days if we're talking about Persephone. Yeah,
Yes,
like the hands. Yeah.
one to 2 days per hand, and this character's got six of them. So that's like a week worth of hand and arm rendering if you want to hit that fidelity that a lot of professionals are. That's just the realistic nature of it.
And you don't have to bring every hand into that level of focus, but like the one closest to the face and maybe the one crossing the torso. But
Yep,
I think all of them should be pushed
it's got to be
to some
pushed.
degree. Yeah, like they need their edges cleaned up and the anatomy refined.
But thank
But
you,
I
Martin.
really do like that piece. That's a really cool piece.
Thank you for getting real with us, Martin. All right,
Ooh,
Taylor Allen. Now this is my type of image here. I like I
it's
like
very
it's
pretty.
very bold, right? It's pretty. Um, it's got some storytelling in it. It's dynamic, and it's got a cool kind of sense of flow to it. That's my
Yeah,
favorite
I
parts
really
of it.
love the colors and the light choices. Like the lighting is very dramatic and ethereal at the same time. It's really nice. It has a very ghostly quality to it. Um,
And
yeah,
and
it's very
right,
beautiful.
like because it I like so many attributes like that. It has a lot going for it. But
Hmm.
when you get nitty gritty with this, we're gonna call you out on this one, Taylor. Like, what is this? Like, come
Oh,
on. Like, you took a shortcut here. I know Jess knows you took a shortcut here. That doesn't work. This does not work. Mm-mm.
Yeah, and I feel like it also, it's one of the more obvious areas like that, but I think that
There's a
it
lot of
does.
it. There's a lot of
Yeah,
it.
there's a lot of areas that are just like kind of the gesture, and the gesture is beautiful.
She got to
And it's
clean up.
like the edges haven't been resolved or decided on yet, and yeah, like some areas of refinement, edges cleaned up. Like I think this is suffering from a lot of just edge work that needs to be gone in. Like if you had gone into that horse and rider area and just refined the edges, refined
Yep.
the silhouette and the shape, you could have gotten away with a lot more of the messiness inside of that shape. But because even the outside of that
It's
shape
the
is,
outside.
yep,
The silhouette doesn't have. It doesn't feel accurate. It's sloppy. Kind of like a lot of these other elements,
yep,
like these big elements that we see. Like edges is the first thing that's going to make a work, regardless of level of detail and polish elsewhere and internally. It's your edge work that
hmm
really suffers big time here. And you just gotta, we said it before, you gotta sink another 6 to 10 hours into this, cleaning it up, polishing it up.
yeah. And some of that too is deciding, does this edge need to be this sharp? Does this edge need to be this soft? Like a lot of those decisions can really elevate a piece when it becomes intentional, the type of edges that you have around things versus kind
Mm-hmm.
of just a gestural cutting and carving into the painting.
Yep. But there's a lot I like about it.
Yeah, this is, I mean, like all the pieces are there, the composition, the colors, the values, it's all pretty. It just needs to be cleaned up and
It's
polished.
pretty and pretty unfinished. So let's get to it. All right, well, let's do Kate next. Kate's a nice little character piece. So this is a good example too of like a vertical composition where the content fits the orientation right very well. It's like I'm not going to come in here and crop half this thing off or anything. I think
Or turn it into a landscape painting.
yeah, exactly. It in every space, right? Every bit of this is really utilized, and there's some great detail. This might be one of the better detailed pieces, right, throughout this whole thing. Like it's very consistently executed. What's sharp is sharp. What's soft and implied is soft and implied. I think it's very well executed fantasy, dark fantasy
Mhm.
art.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I noticed first that might need some work is the you have the white and black going for your highlights and shadows. The
Mm,
light is very white and the shadows are very black.
yeah,
There's not a lot of temperature shifting. Everything feels like it's kind of in this blue-green range. And
cool
then,
neutral.
yeah. And there's little pops of orange, but that feels like a local color thing as opposed to a temperature shift according to values.
Yeah.
So it looks like because where the light is hitting, the oranges seem to come a little more alive. So that would suggest a warm light source to me. So I think that like adding a little more warmth and yellows or golden tones into the light around her will help sell that a little more.
Right.
And then also some of those greens will shift into warmer greens instead of the
See,
teals.
even just like a little bit of this color,
Mm-hmm.
I think like that's the color it'd be my leading color where
Yeah,
there's
especially
light.
like on the hand that's holding the fruit, like where that all goes kind
Like
of
right
whitish teal.
like you can
Hmm
see it when you zoom in. Like there's it gets overexposed and blasted out. Like this needs to be carefully and delicately executed in regards to like those subtle shifts that are going on
Yeah.
in here.
And I think you'll find that the temperature shifting will tell you a lot more about the value and the form, and you won't feel the need to blast it out with white and black nearly as much when you're able to control the temperatures better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of nice subtlety. A lot of good range here left on the table. You can seize it, make a
Hmm
really strong image, even
And
stronger.
then another thing about this piece, aside from the white and black values, is the checkerboarding of the values. You're getting a lot of like light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, as opposed to grouping, especially when you get into like all of the things inside of her tentacles, bottom half,
Mm.
the skulls and stuff hidden in there. You get like the bright pops of light against the black background
I
shadow
I would
colors.
honestly mute to a degree a lot
Hmm
of that background using various cooler purples and blues, and
That
then
could be
that
pretty.
right that way where you do have this light, really popping off like the surface right of that character. Oh, that's perhaps a little terrible, a little too terrible of a shape. Yeah, it's gonna feel that much more,
Yeah, because
impactful.
you're framing the light
S-
with a darker value.
It's just a matter of simplifying, some of these kind of components. You get a little bit of a bloom going on if you do it carefully. I'm not being very careful about it, but you can add a lot of nice subtlety to this without going crazy, in that background. Like I got rid of. Oh my god, what is that brush? It's attacking me. Just give me this square. Yeah, let me get out of there. All right,
And
like
I
subtle.
think too, even like you have those, the different leaves in her hair, they're all kind of the same value. You get like this dark black shadow, and then they're all kind of the same level of kind of this light
Mm-hmm.
tealish gray.
This is a very chalky color going on right here.
Mhm.
It needs that subtle variety, I think, like you said. But yeah, this is a gorgeous picture and nicely detailed. I love it. Gets the brush seal bolts. Damn, this is one that's got the detail. We're bringing the detail. Look at this.
Yeah, they did some cool stuff with the architecture. I think this is one very similar to the last one where you get a lot of that white black quality to it, where the light is just the same tone, just with white added to it, and the same with
It's
the
yeah.
black.
I think it's just right. Like you could see it really easily like this. It's just far too gray. If you have trouble seeing it, you can make things even more obvious too by like sucking the detail
Mhm.
right out of that. Like so, this is maybe like 4. So that's your image with 0 details. The figure gets lost and muddy. There's not enough separation between like this major shape. You can really see it clearly there.
And there's so much noise in the foreground.
Yep. You gotta pick and choose your battles, just like in the game. You gotta, like, even like with, if you separate that out, like, and you'd have to select this way more carefully, a lot more carefully than I'm doing, right? But like even like this, you could group even on an overcast scene like this, like, just compress the heck out of these values here. So at least you can start to push the drama, forward, right? And like you can get this character silhouette. That guy can be right darker too, so we can
Yeah.
see it, and then you just up that contrast overall. But like this is so detailed, it's right like you were saying, it's so dense. Like this is the biggest areas that are completely criminal of it. So detailed.
Yeah, it's like even when you took the median tool and like just stripped detail of it, like it was like a relief to the eye to lose some of the detail there,
It's
because
too
there was just
noisy.
there's just too much of it,
It's just
and
yeah.
it doesn't feel in line with some of the details of the other areas that are meant to be the focal points, the lighter areas that this figure is walking into.
Yeah, it's over probably from the use of photos, if that was the primary technique here.
Yet
Using
there's definitely
those.
some ground stuff that feels out of place. It feels pasted in.
Mm-hmm. And then you can start to bring in a little bit of that light, as you're doing. But yeah, like you could have more atmosphere too over some of that stuff to help push it. And you could use like a lot of these really nice subtle colors that I wouldn't go that light, but you could have like it
Yeah.
also feels like there should be embers too coming through the air a little bit over there.
And
But
I feel like even like there's a missed opportunity. Like I could see there's a little bit of the cracks going up to where the figure is, but I would put like little pops of the warm orangey color in there to really kind of create a line for the eye to follow up to the figure and like a focal point. Um,
yeah, like
to you want to guide the eye into the image and through the image.
it should be super bold. Like if orange is like the only color you got going on here, you gotta
Hmm.
you gotta kind of play that up a little bit, especially where it counts. Like you could have like this totally dark silhouette, and then like have the figure entirely backlit, without going over the edges with like some of that light too. And on top of that, you could probably even just push some of that light going around it, like just like a little bit, somewhere over the stairway. We've got like warm light. I think
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
would help too. I think an image like this is particularly tough to pull off because it literally is one point perspective, which automatically makes it look a little flat and fake in some areas. And again, that when I say one point, that means like your
Yeah.
horizontals are
Yeah.
perfectly horizontals, and then we get no, it doesn't feel natural because like even naturally we'll have like a slight bit of, and I mean slight bit of 3 point perspective as we're gawking up on this
Yeah.
castle. And then you're going to see underneath any extruding lips. Like, see, like here, like we're looking flat at this. Like there's no underside to any of this. So it feels super flat because of that. And that's a problem. That'll turn what could be a really cool idea into like a really beginner looking one because you didn't commit to going like doing a more realistic perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Anything else you want to add to this before we go on?
Yeah, like one quick thing is I think that the like shape design of those big shapes in the foreground is really distracting. I think,
These two big daddies.
yeah, I feel like that they're really competing for attention, even aside from the detail and the values and all that stuff. Like the design doesn't complement the shapes within them that they're framing. And so I would think about how you design those shapes. Yeah, part of me wants to just crop them out.
Crop them out.
Yeah,
Like this
I feel
feels a
like,
lot better already,
yeah,
and then you just make these two sides asymmetrical.
yep,
Like that would work. Because
so
like
much
nothing's
better.
important going on anywhere where we just cropped it out. Everything that needs to be something is like right here. Good
I
suggestion.
agree
I
completely.
totally overlooked that. But then once you mentioned it, I couldn't go back.
You couldn't unsee it.
Damiano. This is cool. Oh, he's stealing
This one,
the eggs. The spider. Look at this. This is
oh
hideously
man,
grotesque. Very on point. Really good
he
lighting.
fucked up. This looks like a
You say he
mistake.
fucked up.
He fucked up.
Yeah, he's fucked up. He's going to get it. He's going to
Oh
get it.
man.
All right. I'm trying to get this window optimized here. Yeah, I mean, this
I,
is a very technically proficient image. You're doing the textures better than most. You're doing lighting better than most here.
I really like this one. The storytelling is great. It's terrifying. I think that the one of the things though that's holding it back is focal point. You have
Yeah.
two focal points and they're really competing with each other. This ghastly spider creature grinning at him is a great focal point.
Right.
And then obviously this guy carrying the spider egg about to meet his death is the other focal point. And they're both focal points for different reasons, but they're equally strong focal points.
Yeah.
One of them has to get subdued. And I think as cool as that spider creature face thing is, it's got to get subdued because that's not where the story is.
Yeah, that's exactly what. Sorry, I've lost all sense of my windows right now. See?
And I will say, like, I think that the right answer is to subdue the spider, but just like in case they wanted to keep the spider the same, the alternate solution would be to turn the main character around so we saw their back instead of their face. And
Yeah.
that would be like a subjective, like right now it's a subjective hierarchy because as human beings we're drawn to faces. So that's going to be really important because it's a human face. When you turn him around, he will lose his importance when we just see his back, and that spider skeleton face will be the whole story. So you could go either way with it.
It's true. Yeah, this is what I want to do is to knock back
Yeah, taking the
the
value range down.
yep, and then get a little more so like you don't need as much detail with this and just play off the strength of the silhouette to do that
Hmm.
kind of for you, which obviously I'm selecting extremely poorly right now.
Hey, for the speed you're doing it. You're
Mm,
doing it great.
I'm doing what I can here. Every day I'm selecting. All right.
It's true.
You know,
True
like,
story.
see, just like a little like that even. So it de-emphasizes it. You'll play up the shape. You can do this like a little more subtly, kind of coming in. And then you get that figure, which you could even put like there's light coming in, right? Like, how do you feel about? I'm feeling like maybe
Yeah,
a little light on the side of the cowl here.
I'm almost feeling like light kind of cutting across that vertical thing towards him from those circular light
Like
opening
that one.
areas. Because part of it is, again, you're getting this like visual separation down the middle of the canvas where it almost feels like two different paintings. So finding ways to break up that vertical line in the center, if it's just like shafts of light cutting across onto him, I think that that could really help.
You know, the thing is like I don't know if it needs this. This is like a huge thing, like you mentioned, and it's parts of it work, other parts it feels like a
Well,
bit much.
that part doesn't bother me as much. Yeah, it's calling a lot of attention to itself, so maybe a softening of the values. But I think it's the fact that you've got these two diagonal lines, but then you have like this, I mean, it's a little crooked, but this vertical line in the very center of the canvas
Hmm.
that's cutting it in half. So it's really giving your eye mixed messages as to what direction things are
This
supposed to
leg
be
right
going.
here or this one?
The leg coming down, and
This,
then
yeah.
actually the tower wall behind him, like in the background, like dead in the center.
Okay.
Yeah. See how that's like cutting it in half, and then that leg is kind of echoing that. I feel like that's causing a lot of the composition issues. It's not letting the eye move naturally between the two focal
Hmm.
points.
I definitely don't think we need this. I'm fine
Yeah.
with that one personally, but that leg is
Yeah, I think
problematic.
that could just get diminished with light really easily, so it doesn't block the eye.
Yeah, just because it's a foreground thing, I think the best thing is ultimately to remove it.
Hmm.
But yeah, you got really good lighting down here. It's very kind of high contrast. You could then further add like a little bit of light. Yeah, like you're gonna see the highlights on this with like a lot of the hairs, but the rest of it you don't need any detail on. Like just really minimally get that pushed out, make it
Yeah,
look
and I think
gross.
also with the number of legs and deformed shapes that these creatures have, you have a lot more room, talking about that vertical leg coming down the middle, you have a lot more room to create a leg shape that kind of connects the two in a more diagonal way. Because when you think about composition, it's like the contrast is going to be where your eye goes. That's going to tell you it's important. So you have all of these diagonal lines in the picture that are kind of like the whole picture has this diagonal angle to it. And the character is a focal point partly because it's one of the main vertical lines, which breaks up all the diagonals. But that leg is kind of telling a different story. If the leg has a diagonal that matches a lot of the other diagonals, then
Yeah.
it will again solidify that this angle of this vertical figure makes it the focal point, and it'll help to resolve the dual focal point issues.
Well said. Yeah, like, and good job though. This is certainly
This
top
is a
tier,
really
and
solid piece.
due to the complexity of it, you're gonna have more challenges, to face.
Yeah,
Than
it was
so
very ambitious too.
embrace it and see what you can do. The character I'm not the biggest fan of. Um,
It feels undercooked.
it's just like it's just kind of got a generic red thing. Like if faces aren't your thing, I mean this is Elden Ring. Give it a badass mask. Give him something. It's just like that could be any character. It's kind of like a
And
plain Jane sort of deal.
on a similar note, the colors and choices throughout the whole picture, the kind of gray desaturated with the reds and golds, it's really nice. But then the blue, it feels a little like out of place, like oversaturated. Like I think you could throw the blue in there, but it doesn't feel like it's part of the same painting because the rest of the painting has really kind of understated
Oh,
color
the
choices.
magic.
The blue hand, the
Yeah,
magic,
yeah.
yeah,
I
the
don't think
glowy
it needs
hand.
that. I think if you had like a dagger or something like that, probably be way more
Yeah.
effective. But yeah, thank you for submitting. All right, next up, Arnie. This is Arnie's.
Ooh, another really cool one.
I'm a little. It's like a conflict of interest if I get too into this. I think this is great, but this is Arnie's, and he moderates the Brush Sauce Discord on Patreon, and he does. This is a shameless plug I'm showing. I'm shoving in here. He's a professional educator too. He's getting a lot of experience very fast, but he's a former student of mine. I think now from almost 2 years ago. He's doing great things. So, yeah, he's doing really good stuff, and he does two assignment every month. He's helping all the students in the Discord grow by doing some videos and showing how to practice because he grew really fast. A lot of us like me took forever, and
It's
he
true.
yeah he kind of he knew what to study and how. A very typical Antonio Step Arts sort of story here, where he just progressed through the fundamentals very quickly, and now I have him teaching fundamentals over on Patreon, so he's doing great. So do you want to give your thoughts on Arnie's piece here?
Sure. I mean, the first thing is that it's really beautiful. Like the value structure, some of the choices made with the light cutting through, and the kind of the graphic
Yeah,
design of the shapes, the wings, the shadow of
very
the wing over the face.
dynamic.
That's all really nice. Yeah. I think, and it's a little bit of a stylistic thing because it's a little rougher than how I usually finish my pieces, but I think it could benefit from a little more material
Yeah,
differentiation. So like all of the materials are kind of samey. In a lot of places it works, like on the wing and on the background and stuff like that. Like it works really well. But when you get to the dragon head or the horns or even parts of the figure, you kind of want to see a little
a little
more.
more.
Yeah, like just like to push the polish, like the horns should look like they're a different material than the chains and the head of the creature, the dragon. And so a lot of that just comes from detail and where you put the details, how the light affects the surface.
Yeah, I'd see, like, even like it gets a little murky in places. Like I'd up again like the detail and the like you said, and then really get into like that contrast separation
Hmm.
on some of these really important parts, which I have my brush on color dodge. It's not going to do that now, but like see here again, this nice deep dark, I don't know what color it is,
Shadows
but right,
under the
like
neck.
this shape you can really push out to separate it back from that leg shape, that you had back there. I
Which,
think really help.
yeah, and I think like the composition is so effective that it's doing a lot of the work for you,
Yeah,
that you
very
don't
good
need a lot of the
composition.
details. But if you come in there and spend the time to just really pop some of the detail and materials in the focal areas, I think it's going to give you that much more um, mileage. Like it's
Right,
going to make that much more of an impact.
like where this light hits in
Hmm.
the texture, you're gonna see extra details on. And then here, of course, I'm just, because it's in the shadow, just pushing. Well, I can't. I think it's too not worth the hassle going to get my color. But yeah, like I'd go like really deep and rich on that face and stuff. But yeah, this is great. Like this guy could use a little detail, but like when you say like okay, you could use a little detail, that's like okay, you probably just whip this thing out quick. It probably not even in your portfolio yet, but if you wanted it to be, I think it's great. You could push the contrast and again some of the color up on some of this. It gets a little too lost, and it's an easy opportunity to just get it in there, and it's just going to amplify all the vibes that you have going on
Hmm.
here, which is already very good. It feels dirty, it feels dusty,
Yeah,
it
I
feels
feel like kind of
dramatic.
those dark reds under the neck and stuff are going to do a lot to sell it, like
Yes.
where that chain attaches to the neck. Like you want there to be some drama.
Yep.
I mean, I hate to say like drama in the shadows, but like it's like you're selling this moment here. This creature is attached here, and it's like the more you get that contrast in there, I think it's going to sell that story better.
Let's give this guy a lightning spear too. Just shoot
Oh
a
no.
lightning a Elden Ring
No.
lightning spear at this dude's face. All right, let me get out of here before I ruin your
No,
beautiful
that's
picture.
such a solid piece.
It is 3D Berserk. I love the Berserk series, and I occasionally like working in 3D. So maybe I'll really like this
Mhm.
picture. This is cool. It's got really good mood, and it definitely feels Elden Ring. Look at this
Yeah, I
guy.
love the like environment. You got that kind of like marshy, wet, overcast feel. I really love the color range of this type of landscape.
I have a question for you on this. Does this feel like, with this particular picture, that there's too many chefs in the kitchen sort of scenario. You got the horse, you got this guy, which is big enough on its own, but you also have a whole castle in the background too.
Yeah,
It's like
it doesn't
these are
feel
all Elden
cohesive.
Ring, but it's like a lot.
It feels like a lot of parts are competing with each other and they're not integrated. And some of that I think is like shape design and compositional choices, and some of it is color choices. So you got kind of this marshy brown color with the rider, and that's like one painting. You've got kind of this green mossy root thing and skeleton and sword, which is kind of its own thing. And then you've kind of got this desaturated, faraway, bluey gray thing, and that's its own thing. And I feel like those different things aren't really communicating with each other.
Here's some ideas. Like I'd
Yeah.
have the rider actually facing the guy because it feels really weird that they're not. That's the big thing.
Hmm.
And then you could, trim the fat and then really make it about that sort of moment. And you could this is fine. Like I like it. It's very but the castle itself feels really flat and geometric. So it's like when it's not up to par, it's going to be a detriment on the scene. So it's like you really make this castle fit seamlessly into the background and make it feel very Elden Ring like, whatever that means. It just, more ruined, more implied. It's very geometric, almost detrimentally geometric, but more bricks and then just less, even like maybe even less it's a good amount of detail, but it should just supplement more or less what you have going on,
Yeah,
with
just
this.
a nice shape to frame
Yeah,
everything.
because it doesn't need much. And then that way, like, I guess from a painting perspective, my big thing is like the shadows are
Hmm.
very flat. Like this is
Very
like this is
black.
black. Like my computer's just telling me this is black. Like you could do that. You could fill that with
And
atmosphere, right?
I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying initially is like it feels like they're two different like paintings in the sense of like this is all green and black up here and then this is all kind of rusty browns down here. Those rusty browns would be affecting the underside of this character like and the roots and all that stuff. You would see some of that orange from the ground beneath him kind of reflected upwards, and you would also see some of the green reflected into the
Mm,
waters and stuff like that. So it's like those two colors need to be interacting in the different parts of the painting.
rusty browns.
Hmm.
Like you could use to your advantage so much atmosphere and smoke and whatever decay, debris. You could really play up the drama in this. Less is more. Like you have everything really detailed, in focus. And it doesn't always have to be that way. Like you could really I'm doing this super quick and it looks like shit and I apologize, but like you can really play this moment up and it should look fantastic. And then get like Jess said, you get in those colors up into here. Like you should have all these nice little colors. A little bit of blue on the side, a little bit in there, but you could fill that shape with a lot of play. Especially the sword. The sword's like a giant black line.
Yeah, the
That's like
sword being
this
black
is
makes no
not. Come on,
sense.
you and I both know this is not you and 3D Berserk. This is not what steel is gonna look like. You gotta. I'm not gonna paint steel. I'm gonna. I'm talking all this shit, and then the steel don't work. But you gotta. It's gotta look like steel. It's gotta have that
Yeah.
power to it. And then like you could even do like a move animation thing, right? Where it's just like in Elden Ring with the big bosses, it sticks this thing in the ground, right? Like it's literally chucking shit. It's a special move coming right at you, the player, and then you die. You can't use your Estus in time. You get ganked. Is what happens. I'm fighting a giant right now in the game, and I can't get by the fucker because of this. But yeah, I feel like impact. Less is more. High details. Play up the drama. Trim the fat. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think you covered a lot of it, and I think just you have some really beautiful colors chosen, and I would just let them play with each other in different areas of the painting more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing browns into the green area and greens into the brown area, and you're gonna see those colors start to create a really nice harmony with each other instead of fight with each other.
I love harmony.
Hmm. Hmm.
Lester.
Even in scenes where you're getting killed.
Yeah, it's always my fault. It's always my fault when I die. Try to use my special move and nope, the boss stomps me. All
Oh,
right, Lester's. This is Lester's. I seen him in the Discord posting this.
nice.
Thematically, this is on point. It captures drama in the moment. It it has a visual hierarchy which I like. Like the clearly the figures taking top and center. Then you get the burning village in the background. What for you about what would you tackle with this to really make it better?
Um, so it's a difficult perspective to begin with. So there's
It
some
is
drawing
challenging.
things that probably, should be resolved better. But I think the thing that's holding it back the most is the value structure. It's getting really checkerboardy. You're getting a lot of black, white, black, white, black, white, especially on the figure in the foreground, but even in the background, you got to think about in like the shadow areas, your lightest lights are still going to be dark, and in the light areas, your shadows are still going to be light. And you want to push them, that separation because like especially if you look at the figure and the creature and the armor on the creature, like it goes black, white so many times. And then the background in the sky is really noisy in the same way where you
It's
just get
very
like these
noisy.
just yeah, whole areas of back and forth, light and
Like
dark.
this. Like it's all like if
Hmm.
you're gonna pick your spot of light, right? Deselect that. I'm just gonna go to color dodge because I can't see half my instruments over here. But like let's say like you just pick like this area, this like you really selectively kind of pull like maybe just like the bottom of the foot for example right there because like this is all in shadow but you really go all the way with this like and then like on this guy too like this is all in light so now like I mean this is an exaggeration of where I would take it but at the same time it is really helping devalue like
Yeah,
this is all shadow this is not shadow um but
but
that's
they're large areas and they're large shapes and
yep.
forms that are telling us a lot about it, as opposed to just like a spattering of light all
Yep.
over this flat, dark
It's got
shape.
to be bold in what it's trying to do so it'll read. Like again, you could get some of this light coming right across the
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you got to
Because
see like the
that
little
black
highlights
foreground.
on yeah, what kind of sound are these little raiders making? That's what I'm thinking. Because like if I were painting this, I'd be like, I'd be doing all kinds of probably inappropriate things. Just popping this dude out. I love it. You got to get into the acting, right? Of your pieces. Mm,
Yeah, sell the drama. It's a very dramatic piece. The color choices and everything is like you really want to see those reds, those warm colors feel like they're glowing, whereas before everything just felt very samey, so nothing really had an impact.
dude, I'd have these embers floating through the air and shit. Like I'd have a couple like break up shapes in the mid ground, like just like shit, like burnt up shrapnel in and there, just to even create
Yeah.
added artificial depth.
And I think what you just did there, those little scribbles with the shape actually help another
Scribbles.
problem was like those two figures, small figures behind them were really distracting.
Yeah,
But like when you add in a bunch of noise that matches that shape language, they kind of become part of the environment
you could even
rather
then
than like this like tiny story that's being
you
told
could
in the
even
corner.
yeah these foreground ones too that go in front of all that. Like you said, I
Hmm.
think the simplifying and organizing that background is like after all this is the next order of business because it's like busy central.
Yeah, and then I think it'll be like taking some reds and choosing where those reds are the strongest and kind of softening some of the shadows except for where they create really good leading lines in the background. Um, Yeah, think of the like where you choose to keep strong shadows should be lines that lead the eye to the focal point, the figures, and help tell that story.
This ain't a sword. This is a sword.
Oh, jeez.
Let's do it. Let's do it right. Let's give this fucker a sword. I swore a couple times. I don't know if YouTube's gonna yell at me for that, but I don't care.
Oh,
It's my video. Like
I might have as
foreshorten,
well.
right? Foreshorten the sword. Make that shit look heavy, powerful, and dangerous. Because that's what this
And
guy is.
another thing too, in the same way that Tyler put those bright golden lights on the one side, you can also get a more subtle but rich red color on the other side, so you get kind of this rim lighting of the red from the background, which I see that they've kind of done already, but they've done it in a very like patchy way as
Patchy.
opposed to like unifying shapes.
Don't trust Patches. He will. He's a character in the game. He will yeah, like you
Oh
said.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. She could, yeah, play up a little bit of these. I'm doing such a bad job. What? Oh, I'm on
Eh,
hard
you're
light.
doing
That's
it
why I think
correctly.
I was trying to do color dodge. That's why. Color dodge. Come on, Raw Straws. Color dodge us. A little bit of that right there. And then you get all the cool lights with all these metals
Like
going
the
through.
fills. And yeah, then instead of having black shadows, you can go into some cooler midtones to really define those shapes that are in the shadow.
It's a badass piece, though. Thank you,
Mm,
Lesser.
yeah, very dramatic.
All right. Last but not least, we got Chen's piece. How you doing, Chen?
Nice.
All right. Yeah, I remember seeing this one. I think I saw this on Facebook and
So
Discord.
this was one of the ones that we were on the fence about whether it was finished enough to include, but I think we finally decided there were some strengths with this one that, you know,
Yeah, it
helped it.
really hits the mood and the tone of the game so well. And it's got the statue, it's got the roots. And I think I commented almost like a month ago now on Facebook. You got some nice details in there. You can really see them, like where it's crisp, and like here looks really good. But for every area that you have that's really in focus and polish, you can really see a lot of digital artifacting going on that makes it look very unfinished. So like a lot of these
Yeah.
brush strokes, like they're ghostly they're ghost like a brush. It's just remnants of like a very unfinished looking painting. Like,
Hmm.
you could just see it. Like once an artist can see it, they can't unsee it. Like a lot of this going on around here. You can see it really well over here. It's like
Yeah, like if you look at the top of that column you're fiddling with now, you can see where like the
yep,
sky brush marks kind of go in the same direction to like cut out the column
yep.
instead of be a natural formless shape that goes behind the column.
It's
And it's things
cleanup
like that.
work. Cleanup, like
Yeah,
see
it's
like
like,
that.
yep.
Just cleaning it up, which is gonna take hours. Which is why I was surprised you bang this thing out like a week. I want to say in my memory. My memory's terrible, so take that one. You finished this
We're getting
really
there.
early, and that's just like you got like 3 weeks. Polish this sucker up because like you can do it, and that's what it needs. Like this, I can do this too. That's a singular brushstroke. But the thing is,
Yep.
that singular brushstroke ain't a vine. It's not communicating the shape, the form, and the texture that this picture demands to really have. I'm going
Y-
too green, but
Yeah, but you got to think that the vine has volume. It has
yep,
shadows underneath it. It's reflecting light. It has
yep,
a curve to it. You can't just put in like a
a
big stroke
brushstroke.
and then even like paintings that are very brushy, they're very intentional in the way that the brush marks are laid down. Like the background of the sky would be a really nice brush mark with the column cutting over it very perfectly, so there's no like cut like painting around the column, making a bunch of messy brush strokes. So if you want to go for a brushy look, you can still do that, but again,
Very
it's
hard to do.
way more refined than you would think that it is when you look at it.
See what I'm doing here is maybe even too bad. But like if I turn that layer on and off, if you guys just focus on the statue, it's cleanup work. Like it's sloppy. Like this is sloppy. And
Yep.
this is what I was talking about. You gotta clean it. You gotta clean the background, and then when you're done that, you gotta go in and clean up the shapes and what the light's doing with those shapes, which you're
Hmm.
getting at with then you add the highlight, then you get the core shadow, then you get the ambient light. It's tough to
Yep.
polish an image. It takes discipline and it takes time. With the right reference and of course the dedication, you can definitely do it, and this painting can work because of that. But yeah, it has a lot of very rough areas still that you need to just get in and polish up.
Yeah, and it has a great mood and a
Mm-hmm.
great like sense of atmosphere and story, and it could be really dramatic and poetic if it was polished and it was able to like not be held back by the fact that it looks unfinished.
I'd almost have too like a little guy kneeling or doing something at the altar, because that's what you do. You could have like the site of grace. You get the little
Or another type of storytelling, if you want to keep it as desolate as it is, you could have a corpse or a skeleton there,
Corpse.
like something that died there, so it still has that empty feeling without any
Yeah,
figures.
this is like it looks like a shrine in the game, and when I go to sometimes there's like a half dead maiden over in the
Oh yeah.
corner that's like, I got the rot, like go get me the cure, or like you gotta go find this dude in a shack and he tells you to get the cure, and you gotta like kill like a bastard dude in the swamp and he'll get you. Yeah, I'm into it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it could use a
storytelling,
half-dead maiden.
storytelling,
And
put it in.
yeah, again, in the same way, like we're talking about polishing the edges and things like that in the foreground, like really refining those shapes and going in and painting them, spending the time to paint them. I also think, especially in the background, like those shapes and stuff of the village or towers in the background, they feel so undesigned, like just really rough. Like think about the shape design and what you like, how you want those shapes to play with the rest of the
Hmm.
shapes in the image.
Yep,
So
clean, simple and clean. All right, we'll get it, I guess. Do you have any ideas for spring?
I don't know. Could be a nice change though from the dark
Yeah, I want to
fantasy.
go polar opposite. All right, guys, we got our favorite and runner-ups. These were actually all suggested by Jess, and I just simply said I concur because I agree. Yeah.
I
All right.
had a feeling he would agree. I feel like
Yeah,
this one's
I let you take the lead on this one, and yeah, served you well. Uh, I think Arnie's there, definitely the most
yeah,
balanced, technically
yeah, we
well
chose the
executed,
dragon as the first place. Hmm.
and then these two are equally runner-ups.
Yeah, they both are really solid pieces that with like a little work on the composition and just like a little more push on the painting, like
They all
both of these could be fantastic paintings.
they all feel very Elden Ring, which is great. So yeah, thank you guys for submitting. I'll once I figure out, because I never do it now. Once I figure out what the next challenge is and when that's due, I'll add that in the video. For anyone wondering how to enter, just go to the Discord links in the video. They should work, and you can submit there or ask any moderator. And yeah, any closing thoughts for you, Jess? Thank you for joining me tonight.
It's fun as always. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
I
you.
love seeing all the creative ideas, how people solve the same problems.
It is true. All right, thank you guys. I'll put the next challenge up, and yeah, I'll catch you next time. All right, folks. So the next challenge will be the Spring of Rebirth, and we'll make that due May 1st, the first week of May. Just try to get it into the Discord. Just follow the links below if you're still watching. I know I kind of have a little bit of a darker example, but this was, of course, intended to be a spring based theme, so it can be a little more optimistic, bright, and colorful if you guys want. This isn't just purely dark fantasy. So have fun. Think about where the Spring of Rebirth is located and who and what intent could it be used in your particular context. All right, so see you next time. Thank you guys for submitting and watching. Links below for anything else you may need.